Well, it's time for a new coffee chat. I want to talk today about my start and beginning, and then a little bit of my history of reloading. I started reloading 13, 14 years ago. I don't remember the exact date. I do remember the time in life. I had just returned to school after being stationed overseas. When I was overseas, I couldn't have any personal firearms. And so coming back to school, coming back to the States, over the course of that first few semesters back, I picked up a couple of handguns, to include the Taurus 357 that you've seen a few times. I picked up a shotgun, and I picked up a couple of hunting rifles. Picked up a 243 and a 30-06. And after being back to school for a short while, I met my beautiful bride. We got married, and we found ourselves living in a small apartment, both full-time students and both working. I had two part-time jobs at the time. Now, my interest in reloading, I wanted to hunt, and I also wanted to do a small amount of target practice and recreational shooting, so I certainly was not a large volume shooter at that time by any means. But I was interested in reloading. I knew that by reloading, I could save some money. It'd be cheaper. Obviously, there's a startup cost to reloading, buying all the initial equipment. But in the long run, I knew I'd end up saving some money. At that time, it was, it was kind of outrageous. A good 30-06 or 243 round was almost 50 cents a piece. Also, I'd heard that you can end up with better and more accurate ammunition than factory if you reload. I didn't know how true that was or not, but it sure sounded good, and so reloading certainly interested me. So I went to the local Walmart and a couple other stores and picked up a good portion of what you see here sitting on this table. Most of this came from one of the RCBS Rock Chucker Supreme, I think they called the Master Reloading Kit. It came with the Rock Chucker single stage press there. Now, it didn't come with this primer attachment. I've added that since, but it did come with the spent primer catcher there. It came with this Spear 13th edition reloading manual. It came with this case lube pad and this case resizing lube. I still have a good portion of that left, and I still use it. Some of these things I bought separate. I don't remember what all came in the kit for sure. Most of it did. Came with this Unifo powder measure. I haven't used this much. Nothing against it really, but I haven't given it a lot of use. This has a little bracket here that you can use to mount this on top of the reloading press. I think I used it a time or two that way, but only a time or two. I ended up with a case trimmer, a little manual case trimmer, a reloading block. I picked up these three dice sets. I picked up the 357 mag, the 243, and the 30-06. It came with a powder trickler and the 505 beam scale, and then a powder funnel, and then this little primer seeder. I've installed a lot of primers with that thing. Of course, I had to get the shell holders. I knew I needed a micrometer, and then some powder, some primers. I think I picked up about 100 pieces of brass for each caliber I loaded, and some jacketed bullets, and started reloading. I'm sure at the time I looked online to figure some things out. I don't remember where I went to get the info or how useful it was. A lot of the info I pulled out of this manual as well. Now, you did hear me right when I said when I started reloading, I lived in a small 2-bedroom apartment. And back here is a card table. And when it was time for me to reload, you can see here, hopefully you can see here where I would screw down this trimmer to when it was needed. But the press, card table is a little flimsy, but I mounted it to it. I took an old wood pallet, chopped it into pieces, drilled a couple holes, and that's where the press mounted, through the table and through this. And then I put a bolt back here to give it some extra support. And so I started, my first reloading bench was this card table. You can see there on the edge of the table the first three powders that I bought. I bought 2400 because when I looked in the manual that seemed like a great powder for 357 Magnum, and I could find it locally. You can see IMR 4350 because when I looked in the manual that was a powder that worked for both 30-6 and 243, and again I remembered seeing it on the shelf. And in the back there you'll see a pound of Unique, and I bought that because I also picked up some of these 38 caliber plastic shot shells to load some snake rounds or whatnot, and Unique was the first powder they listed in the manual, so I bought some. The 243 and the 357 I started loading right away. The 30-6 I didn't end up reloading it for a couple of years. I don't remember exactly why I waited. I don't think I picked up, or I think I wanted to sort out the 243 first before I got to the 30-6. Anyway, after we graduated from school, we moved and bought our first house, and I set up an old desk in one of the rooms there, and I mounted the press to it, so no more folding card table. And I did reload there, but it wasn't a whole lot because that's also the same time that I ended up with a bow in my hands and started getting to archery hunting. A few years after that, we moved where work took us, and when we got to that new house, I actually built the reloading bench that I use now. I've modified it a little bit since, but that's where I first built it and started reloading and shooting a bit more there. And it was at that house that I acquired my Smith & Wesson Model 29, and so a new caliber. And 44 really is a very natural cartridge to reload for. About 4 years ago, I started casting, and I also started shooting a little bit of local league competition and some steel challenge. And with that, the volume of shooting increased quite a bit from what I had been doing. And so that's when I ended up acquiring the turret press that I use, the Writing T7. And that's also when I picked up the automatic powder dispenser. And since that time, I've reloaded and shot quite a bit more. But I think I'll leave the start to casting story for a separate cup of coffee. I'd love to hear your stories about your start to reloading and the journey since that you've taken. Throw it in the comments or record your own video. We'd all love to hear it, and there's plenty of coffee to be brewed. Oh, before I forget, I came across another new reloading channel a few weeks ago. A guy named Nathan, and his channel is called The Reloading Room. It's reloading, but without the G on the end, so reload in. I'll put a link to his channel in the description. Last I checked, he has, I think, 4 videos posted and about 15 subscribers, so let's surprise the heck out of him by having a large crowd show up. Anyway, that's it for this chat. Thanks for watching, and God bless.